Have you ever noticed how some people don't seem angry anymore? They just seem distant, as if their eyes are still here, but their heart has already left the room. There's a specific kind of silence in the gaze of someone who has learned not to react. Not out of coldness, not out of disinterest, but because of a profound exhaustion from feeling too much for too long. Maybe you recognize that look in the mirror every morning while you're holding a cup of coffee before heading to work, even when you have no will to go. Or on the subway bench with your headphones on, surrounded by people and yet deeply alone. The world flashes by through the window, but inside, everything feels still. Some people didn't turn cold, they just got tired of hurting in silence, tired of trying to explain what they feel and not being heard. Tired of waiting for something that never comes. And when the world calls this indifference, on the inside, it's just someone trying to survive their own emotions. If at any point in your life they called you emotionless, or if you felt misunderstood for staying quiet, know that maybe it was never about them. Maybe it was always about you and about what the world was taking from you, piece by piece, without ever asking permission. The so-called Generation Z grew up with screens, notifications, and constant opinions, a world that never turns off. It's the generation that learned how to show themselves before they even learned how to listen to themselves. What people call the Gen Z stare is in reality a shield. It's the moment the soul asks for permission to leave the stage because reality has become too loud. We live in the age of excess, yet we've never been so hungry for something that is real. It's the excess of messages, of demands, of expectations, of haste. It's growing up hearing that everything is possible while living in a world where almost nothing feels stable. On the outside, it looks like coldness. On the inside, it's just someone trying to not lose themselves in the noise. We are like sailors on an ocean of glass. Everything is bright, smooth, and infinite. You can see for miles ahead, but there's nowhere to anchor. The gaze of this generation is the gaze of someone looking for solid ground in a world made of pixels and expectations they didn't create. You see roots everywhere, careers, lifestyles, possible versions of who you should be, but none of these roots feel like they're actually yours. Everything is a reflection, everything is a storefront, everything is a promise. And sailing without a port is draining. It's exhausting to pretend you know where you're going when, deep down, you're just trying not to sink. They say this generation gave up on the future, on having children, on building things. They say they're lazy or too sensitive. But how do you build something solid on top of quicksand? There is a silent truth at the bottom of that fixed stare. The fatigue of carrying a future that seems to have arrived already exhausted. It's the pain of being a promise that the world forgot to keep. You see it every day when someone cancels plans at the last minute, not because they don't care, but because they didn't have the strength to pretend that everything is okay. When someone chooses to stay home rather than go to a party, not out of spite, but because they have no energy left to perform happiness. When they answer whatever, not because they're indifferent, but because they've felt ignored so many times that they've learned not to take a stand. Many resolve things by pulling away. They go ghost for a while. They stay silent. They disappear from the group chats. It's not contempt, it's a desperate attempt to put themselves back together, away from the noise. Sometimes it's the only way they've learned not to explode inside. They are accused of not being able to handle pressure, but few realize that many are just tired of living in emotional survival mode. It's not a lack of will to build something, it's the fear of building on top of something that might collapse all over again. We live in a time where the mind almost never rests. Notifications blink all day long. Bad news piles up as if the world is always on the brink of another collapse. It's an information overdose that leaves no room to truly feel what's happening inside. We wake up with a vibrating phone and go to sleep with a head full of voices we didn't choose to hear. If you expose yourself, you're judged. If you stay silent, you're accused of not caring. It's like living in an open display window where everyone passes by, looks, opines, and keeps walking, and you stay there, trying to figure out at what moment you became a constant object of evaluation. The distractions don't stop. One video leads to another, a screen lights up before you've even finished feeling something. There's no time to process loss or frustration. And when the mind has no silence, the heart learns to close. The distant look is born there. It's a silent defense against a world that never lowers the volume. If you feel this way, know that your emptiness is not a flaw. It's a sign of humanity. In a world of perfect filters, your melancholy is the most honest thing you possess. That look that seems to see nothing is sometimes the only way to protect what little is left of you inside. Maybe the problem was never that you felt too little. Maybe you felt too much in a place that didn't know how to hold who you were. And when no one looks after what we feel, we learn to keep it all in silence. This silence is not an absence of life. It's a pause, a way to keep existing without falling apart. Don't be in a hurry to come back. Sometimes the desert is the only place where the noise cannot reach us. Breathe. The world can wait for you to find yourself in this emptiness. You are not broken. You are just trying to process the infinite. But before we go, I want to ask you something. Look at your life today, at this fatigue you carry in silence, and tell me one thing. When was the last time you felt like someone truly heard you without judging you? Write just one word or one phrase in the comments about how you feel right now. You don't need to explain it, just put it out there. When you write it down, you stop carrying it alone. And if you know someone who is also sailing this ocean of glass, someone who has disappeared or who seems to have that distant look, send this video to them. Sometimes the greatest act of love is saying in silence, I know what you're feeling. Thank you for being here. We'll meet again in the next silence.